Welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News. I'm Robin Steinberg, and today we have a very special guest with me, and it's none other than Chaplain Gail Porter. Chaplain Gail Porter has served over 26 years in the U.S. Army and has retired as chaplain in 2007. And she's currently volunteer, her service to a local police department at Port Orchard, Washington, and she also has served other capacities in her area. And well, you know what? She loves being a chaplain, and she was called into the military chaplaincy in 1991 after she has received her relationship with Jesus Christ in 1986. Today, she truly enjoys opportunities in giving encouragement to others, especially those who, facing sorrow. Chaplain Gail Porter, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me, Robin.
Yes, it's been a real pleasure, and I know although we are talking in different time zones. Singapore time right now is almost about 1:30 in the morning, and there you are. Over in the United States, everybody's envy about your career. Um, Tell us, how did you become or got yourself involved as a chaplain?
Well, that was not my idea when I first came in the Army. I had been in the Army for 13 years by the time I was chaplain. Um, and, I went to church, I was religious, but it was during a time where it was a time of deep sorrow for me. There was just a lot of questions I had in my mind. At any rate, I met some people who really introduced me not to the religion of Christianity. I knew about that, but to the relationship that you can have with a person named Jesus. Um, and I came to really know Jesus. I'm glad you mentioned um, in my introduction that it was a relationship with Jesus, because that's exactly what it was. And I didn't really know a lot at the time, but the Lord, I just knew that that was the direction He wanted me to go. So after being 13 years on active duty, well, some of it was active duty, some of it was in the reserves while I was going to seminary, because when I was called, I didn't know anything.
Mm,
Anyway, once I came back on active duty as a chaplain, um, that's when things got interesting.
mm.
That's when things got interesting. People knew me from before, and they couldn't believe that Gail Porter was a chaplain. But I told them Jesus can use anybody, and He used me. Does that answer your question?
Mm. Well, a lot of people like to know what does it mean to be a Christian? Uh, uh, yes,
Be a Christian.
yes.
Different things for different people, I think. For me, it has meant, because I had been put it in quotation marks, a Christian before, because that was the kind of church that my parents brought me to. I thought I was a Christian. And then, because I got around people who really knew Jesus personally, I noticed that they had something I wanted. They had problems in their life, but they had a joy about them. They just didn't seem to be all uptight and worried about it. They just seemed to get through it. And so finally, I realized that I could know Jesus personally. And I'm not sure I really understood that at the time, because here I am, a little human being, and here Jesus is part of the Godhead. I mean, I couldn't even think about that, but I knew deep in uh, my soul became alive, is what happened. And I knew that's what it really was. It was being in a relationship.
Mm,
So from there, because I had become into a relationship with the Lord, and I wasn't about rules and that sort of thing, I found that I could relate to other people. a lot better. People started coming to me when they had situations in their lives, things they didn't understand, and I didn't have to, get into the religiousness of Christianity. I didn't do that. I related to them, and some of them they were fine with that. Some of them wanted to know more about. In fact, to be honest, not very many of them, but some of them did ask more about what I was like. A lot of them, being in the United States, did have a relationship with Jesus, and they were so encouraged that there was someone else that also had that relationship. And that's why I talk about the encouragement that you can give to people. It's not easy to say that you're a Christian. There are so many odd ideas about that. Um, a lot of wrong ideas about that. It's not just a religion. You can make it a religion if that's what you want to do, but so much more. It's a relationship with Jesus. And that's what got me through being a chaplain. That's what made me as successful as I was, and then had me continue in chaplaincy after I got out, working, volunteering in my local police department, and then volunteering in various volunteer organizations that have a chaplain position. And I get so much out of it. And it's the Lord that gives me that excitement about it. I've been excited about it for all these years.
Well, speaking about excitement, there's another question, and that is about destiny. How did you know in your heart that chaplaincy is your destiny?
That is a good question. I'm not even sure I would use the word destiny. It was some people say it's a feeling in their heart, some people say it's a feeling in their soul. I'll say it's a feeling that in fact, you run across this phrase in the Bible, you know that you know that you know. Paul said, I know that I know that I know. That didn't make any sense to me before I came into a relationship with Jesus, but after I did, I just knew that. And I knew that I knew that I knew that I needed to find a seminary, and that I needed to get through seminary, and then that I needed to get accepted into the Army, back, into the active duty Army. I was in the reserves for 3 years while I was going through seminary.
Mhm.
And then I just needed to be a chaplain. I wasn't even sure what that looked like, but the Lord just led me. And to that extent, I guess that was my destiny. In fact, I really didn't think I'd be doing anything about chaplaincy once I got off of active duty, but things just kept falling in my lap. The police department had never had a chaplain before, and the police chief found out that I had been in the Army as a chaplain for a long time, and he thought, well, gee, we're growing and we have more things going on. We'd really like to have a chaplain. So I did that, and then various different organizations I was volunteering in found out that I had been a chaplain, and they had a chaplain position, and they wanted me to do that. That wasn't me. I wasn't out there waving my hands around and saying, hey, I want to be your chaplain. No, I thought, hey, I'm retired. I'm not going to do this. And it takes a lot. I mean, it's a lot of emotional energy to really be involved with people.
Mhm.
But that's what the Lord kept putting in front of me. And so inside, I knew that I knew that I knew that's the direction I had to go.
Now, speaking about direction, Chaplain Porter, a lot of people like to know also is, what kind of challenges do you face when you accepted this chaplaincy in the beginning? Because as a woman and as also uh, as a spiritual leader in the military, especially, what sort of challenges did you face, and how did you overcome those stigma?
The greatest challenge was I wasn't sure if being a woman was and being a chaplain was a thing that I could do. I actually started looking for reasons to not do it. I talked to my parents because the Bible said you should respect your parents. my parents were the kind of Christians that were religious Christians, but they didn't have a relationship with the Lord. And I thought, well, but I want to respect them. So I asked them, and they were both, yeah, you should do that. And I was married at the time. My husband has since found other things to do, so he left. But at the time I was married, and I asked him because I thought, well, I was looking for people who were going to say no. To be honest, it was too big, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And he said yes. And then I talked to, believe it or not, I talked to somebody who was visiting the United States, and I believe he may have been from Singapore. I still have a picture of him and his wife holding my small daughter at the time. She's 26 now. Um, and we had a conversation about women as ministers. And at the time when we were talking, he didn't like that. He was against that. But then he said, I will pray about that. And in the morning, he said that when he prayed, the Lord showed him how when Gamaliel was coming against Jesus, he said, well, if it's just a man, then it'll just fall to, this is my version of what's in the Bible. You'll have to look it up. If someone's listening to this, they'll have to look it up to find the exact words. But the basic thing was you can just let it go. It'll fall apart. It's just a man. But if he really is who he says he is, we could be coming against the living God. And the man I had been talking to said, if that's what you feel like you need to do, then you should do that. And that was the last person I could think to ask. I thought, okay, everybody's saying I should do this, so I guess I should do this. I'm not sure I was that comfortable, really, because I had grown up in an environment where women just weren't ministers, chaplains, pastors. As a chaplain in the military, I pastored 4 different congregations as I, moved from one duty station to another. I think that it's up to the individual what that's going to look like, and also the people who are dealing with the individual, with me, what they think. Some people just don't want to deal with a woman who's in charge of in a spiritual situation, in a religious situation, and that's up to them. For those that
Mm-hmm.
don't have a problem with that, great. Then that opens the door for a relationship between the two of us, or the me and a group, and we can go forward from there. Jesus was never the exact same way with every single person. Some people he healed them physical infirmities. Some people he would just calm their fears. I think that I think that the Lord is really, really big. And I think for people that have problems with that, fine, as long as you're not in the way of people, of women who are in ministry. And that's what I really appreciated about this one man that I had been talking to so many years ago. He was able to express that he personally had a problem with that. But then when he really came to the Lord and prayed about it, he was able to tell me that, well, okay, I still have a problem with it, but you go ahead and do what you feel like you believe that the Lord is leading you to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and speaking about leading, Chaplain Porter, now how did you overcome fear and anxiety of the future? I think, especially women in leadership, spiritual leadership as well,
Yes.
as a chaplain. How did you overcome anxiety and fear? Because a lot of women around the world, when they take up spiritual or leadership positions, they often have to contemplate about the future.
Yes.
So how did you do that?
I prayed a lot. And I also, the Lord knew my heart, and I would be honest with him. I just, my prayers are not the kind, when I pray with the Lord, they're not the kind that you find in a book. My prayers were my heart. I let the Lord know exactly what I was feeling at the time.
Hmm.
He brought other people to me who were prayers, who also knew the Lord very intimately. and were powerful prayers and who lifted me up to him. And I could feel that calmness or whatever. Not calmness, like, I don't know, that seems to be a real spiritual word, calmness, but um, I think the Lord just knew how to make me feel inside the things that when I knew that I knew that I knew that I needed to be a chaplain. I also came to know that the Lord was for me. Who can be, if the Lord is for you, who can be against you?
Mhm.
There were other scriptures that the Lord just, they were almost on fire, if I can say that. They were almost on fire on the page. I mean, he just really made it obvious to my spirit that this is really the message I want for you. I want you to really grab onto this and really know this.
Mhm.
Yeah, he agreed. Yeah, it's scary, but I will lead you.
Mhm. So, Chaplain Porter, how do you adapt to changes? What kind of advice would you give to soldiers who come to you and, and as the world change so much around them, how do you adapt to change?
Adapting to change.
Yes,
You know,
change.
that's what we do as human beings. There's always change going on.
Yeah.
I For people that are not in a relationship with the Lord, I think they just have to intellectually figure it out for themselves. If you are in a relationship, excuse me, for those who are in a relationship with the Lord, be very honest about where your heart is. The Lord is not afraid of the fact that you're afraid. He doesn't chastise you because you can't think of what to do or just really don't want to do something, because I can tell you there were many, many different times when I was just in that very place. But I was real with God. I mean, it was real with the Lord. And I said, I don't, these aren't the exact words, but words to the effect, I don't know what to do. And then I would I would feel inside of me, or I would get an idea of things that I had never thought of before. And this happens still today. I'll be in a situation and I'll think, Lord, I have no idea. I don't know what to do. And then it'll just come to me, just like that. And so I'll do that. And it'll be something very simple, because I'm a simple person. I have other friends who think big thoughts, and the Lord uses them to do really big things.
Mhm.
I think medium sized to small thoughts, and the Lord is very simple with me, and I just go forward with the very simple ideas that He gives me. And it depends on I think if I were talking to somebody who did have a relationship with the Lord, I would
Mhm.
say it depends on your relationship with the Lord. And the deeper that relationship is, the more you'll be able to listen to Him.
What would be your three key advice, Chaplain Porter, for aspiring women who wants to enter into the ministry as a pastor or chaplaincy? What would be the three key advice for young women around the world?
First of all, the first thing I would say, the three key advice is, first of all, know how your relationship is with the Lord. If you're not sure what your relationship is with the Lord, then focus on that first. Don't go out and figure out all these things you can do as a minister or a pastor. Work on your relationship with the Lord. The second thing is, once you absolutely have a relationship with the Lord that is two-way, that you are not just praying in the morning and praying at night, but I mean, like, you're praying in your mind all the time, several times a day, because the Lord really is a very close friend of yours, because that's how you have to, once you get in that kind of a relationship. Even if you're not in that kind of a relationship, looking for opportunities to pray as you're going on in your day, that's the kind of relationship to go with. That's the second thing, is once you're in that relationship, start stepping out in those opportunities that the Lord is giving you. It'll be scary. You'll be afraid of it. I know I was. Maybe you won't be. Maybe that's not the relationship you'll have with the Lord, but even if it is scary, do it in the way that you really feel like He is leading you to do it. And the third thing I would say is keep looking for what the way I would say it is keep moving forward, keep looking forward to what the Lord is doing. I hear a lot of things about, oh, you have to figure out, exactly what you're doing and that sort of thing. And if that's the kind is that if that's the way that you think, and if that's the way the Lord is leading you, fine. I can say that is not the way I think. I never came up with any of this. And the Lord was able to use even me, someone who does not think logically, but whose eyes are set on the Lord. So, first of all, work on your relationship with the Lord. Second of all, step out in the direction that He has you going. And third of all, keep looking around on the horizon, so to speak, to find out what direction He's leading you now. Those are the
Well,
three things that I would
well,
say.
thank you. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, Chaplain Gil Porter. And folks,